Hey, what's up everybody, this is Chris with Digital Rim, and in this video we're going to go over the 3-point light setup that we use for our default scene in Blender. So with that being said, we're just going to cut the fluff and hop right into it. Let's go. Okay, the first step in adding a 3-point light setup is adding a light. So go to add, light, and you have all of these different options of lights you can add. We're going to do an area light, but you can choose spotlight as well, but area light for now. And we're just going to add an area light. Okay, the first light we're going to set up is our backlight. Again, you want to scale this up, you want to position it, you want to rotate it to be in the position of a backlight of a scene. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. We currently have it at the size we want for now, so we're going to just use the handles and rotate it towards the direction we want it to point. And then we're just going to move it on the x-axis and move it on the z-axis back. Now we're going to do our best to rotate this in the direction that it's pointing towards the actual box, or what we want, the point of interest. Now if you try to use these handles, sometimes it will give you a little bit of trouble, and I left this in the video just so you can see how sometimes using the handles when you're trying to rotate it, it just doesn't align. So if you run into this issue, I'm going to give you the solution to make this work better, and then a better solution of just how to work in general with lights. So again, if you're just trying to rotate with the handles just like this, and you see I'm rotating one way, it's rotating another, and you could turn on the transform to global and local and it still just doesn't match. One of the things you can do, let's take this constraint off. One of the things you can do is turn it to local, and you can see it lines up. And then on the rotation, zero all of the rotations out completely on the transform on the side here. So now, just like now, it still doesn't rotate, but make sure you grab the red part. And if you only see that red circle, that means you're only rotating on the x-axis, and that's exactly how you want to rotate this. Again, you only want to see the actual color that you want to rotate, so you have to be very careful in how you select this, as I'm struggling to select the actual part that I want. But even now, you notice that it kind of rotated on the Z. So we're just going to line that up. And again, it's always a headache just trying to rotate your lights in this fashion. This is how I'm used to rotating objects, but the lights just tend to be a little different. So keep that in mind when you're trying to transform or rotate the lights. Now we're going to go into render mode here and just get a feel for how that backlight looks. Again, this is just a visualization. It's not how the render will look exactly, but you can see there's a little bit of shadow. We're going to move this box down on the ground so it touches the ground. But you can see there's a little bit of shadow that shows off the side of the box that doesn't have the light. So that's essentially what we want, just a nice little visual through the viewport of how this light might look. We're going to make this look a little more realistic later, but let's just go ahead and continue to set our lights up at this point. Become a Patreon today and support this community and support this channel. You might be asking, why would I want to do that? Well, one of the reasons is we are creating coding camps and tech camps for kids, and a lot of the Patreon dollars will go towards setting up those coding and tech camps with equipment and all of the things that are necessary to teach younger generations how to do some of the digital media techniques that we teach here at Digital Rim. So with that being said, your Patreon dollars will go towards scholarships for certain members of the Digital Rim community. So with that being said, make sure you get your membership, but at the same time, become a Patreon if you're not really interested in becoming a member just yet. Let's go. Now that we have our backlight set up, we're going to just duplicate that light by holding Shift D, and then duplicate it one more time by holding Shift D. And then one light is going to be essentially the key light, and another light is going to be the fill light. So we're just going to place these in the actual location of where we want our key and our fill light. Again, it makes kind of a triangle shape, and you'll see when we put it there. Here is another pro tip when rotating lights. If you get into the out of the perspective view, but get into the orthographic view where you're looking straight down. Now you will be able to rotate the light on that axis only, so it won't do that roll when you're rotating. So that's another pro tip, is just getting the orthographic view when rotating the lights. There's another way that I'm also going to cover in a few minutes of how to rotate these lights. But essentially you want to have one light on the left side of the camera, one light on the right side of the camera, and one light shining from behind the actual object or character, whatever that is your point of interest. And that is how you would set up your 3-point light setup. Now, essentially, the heights are wrong, so we're going to change the heights right now. So first we'll start with the key light. And the key light is your main light. It's going to be the thing that mainly lights your actual subject from the front. So keep that in mind. The key light is the main light of your scene, or the main light of your scene. There's no real better way I could put that. And then you have the fill light over here. And the fill light is going to be on the opposite side of the key light on the front side, but it's just going to pretty much fill in the shadows. So your shadows won't be as drastic as if it didn't have this light at all. So you can control your shadows a little bit more. You can make it more dramatic by turning the light off, or make it negative light, or you can actually fill in the shadows just a little bit, which I recommend. And then, making a nice image for your 3-point light setup. All right, so now that we have our lights kind of at the height we want, we're going to start to just rotate these cameras to make them just better appealing. As far as on the y-axis, we're zeroing out our y-axis here. On this backlight, again, we're going to try our best to point it towards the actual subject. So let's just continue to massage just a little bit as far as the rotation to get this to point towards the actual subject from the back side. And this will create a rim around the subject, which separates it from the backdrop, or separates it from the background. Very, very important to have this light as well. So again, that nice little rim around the object really helps put them in the environment. And you'll start to see when we get into render mode, but you'll definitely notice. Again, on the y-axis, using these transform nodes or transform values, we're going to zero out the y-axis. We could lock it as well, but again, using this instead of the actual handles is a lot more easy to navigate your cameras, because they won't rotate and all the other stuff when you just use the values like this. All right, so we're just going to rotate this key light to point towards the actual subject, and you can see that line in the front, that's actually showing which direction the light is pointing. So we're just going to point it towards the cube in the middle of the scene. And now you can see when we go into this render mode, you can see the 3 lights are coming from 3 different directions here. Two are coming from the front, and 1 is coming from the back. Now what I'm thinking is probably changing all of the lights to spotlights so we can get a different look. So we're going to change this to a spotlight by just selecting the light, going to the light properties, and then you can simply change the type of light in this area here. So we're just going to make this a spotlight. It's just that simple. None of the transforms are lost, but you can change the type of light that you created here. And as you can see, the shape looks different. So we have 2 area lights and 1 spotlight, but we're going to go ahead and just change everything to a spotlight. Select it, go to light properties, spotlight. And now it comes off like a cone shape looking shape. Now my battery just died, but we're going to hop back into the scene, but we're going to put a circle instead of a cube so you can see some of these light bounces a lot better. So with that being said, we're going to go into render mode where you can see the lights. And now we're just going to apply some textures to the environment. So we've selected the actual object here, and we're applying a material. And we're just going to do some type of default material. This is how you set a material. Hit new. Make sure it's Principled BSDF. You can name it whatever you want. We're not getting really too far into materials. We can watch this in another lesson. But again, we're just going to give it some value so it can have some specularity, being how reflective it is and things like that, so it can interact with these lights a lot more dynamically. And as you notice, we've set an actual material on the backdrop as well. So we have two different materials, one for the backdrop, one for the actual cube that looks like a sphere right now, but it's still the cube. We just add some modifiers to it. So now that we set the material for the object of our scene, we're going to go ahead and change some of the settings for our light. So we're going to select the backlight here, and under power, we're going to turn this power up from 10 watts to 100 watts. And you see how it changes the light, just like putting in a 100-watt bulb. Now it's a lot brighter than before. So now you're getting that nice little rim light off the back. You can see here where my mouse is. You're getting that nice little rim light, and it gives that sense of depth from coming from behind. I'm moving my camera just so we can see that nice rim light that's coming off the backside. And that makes for a good backlight. That's exactly what you want. I'm moving the object up a little bit because it doesn't look like it's touching the surface. It's going through the floor a little bit. But you're getting that nice rim light just like this. And that's what you want for a backlight. All right, so we're going to pop out of the scene and from the camera and actually see the scene as a whole. And you see we have the key light over here, the backlight in the back, and the fill light. We're going to move this key light a little closer to the actual subject, the point of interest. And you see the camera's here in the middle, and we have this fill light over here. We're going to move it closer to the subject. And then if you're on local axes for when selecting, now you could just slide in the actual direction by just using the arrow. Even though rotating is a hassle, it's easy to move the objects, right? So you have the camera here, your fill light here, your camera's here, and we're going to parent that fill light to this camera. So we're going to do Control P, or you can right click and parent object, and we'll parent that light to the camera. So if we move the camera, that light will move. And we're going to do the same exact thing for the key light. We're going to do the same exact thing. Select the camera. After you select the light, select the camera, right click, select the light, select the camera, right click, or Control P, either or. But you can right click or Control P, and you'll see parent right here, and you're going to go to object, and it will parent that. And you can see by that little line that shows up that it's parented to that actual object. So it's parented to the camera. And we're going to do the same thing for the backlight. Control P, right click. So now when you move the camera, all three lights will move. Oh, I thought I parented it, but I guess I didn't. So do this again. Select the camera. Select the light, select the camera, parent object. And now in the outliner shows the backlight is under it. So just like that, boom. So now it's parented. We're going to actually label this backlight. We're going to label all the lights really. Backlight, key light, and fill light. Even though seems like I labeled these backwards, but key light, fill light. And now we'll just go in and see our scene. So we have our lights, we have our backlight. We'll now label key light and fill light, all of them together. This is how it looks. What I'm going to do is go in and change some of these properties. So we're going to change the color to a blue. And we're going to change this one to like an orange or a reddish color. Just so you can see how the light variation is different and how they work together to create an image. So we're going to go into render mode here. And now you see on the right side, I'm going to save this real quick, but on the right side, we have the blue light, the fill light. On the left side, we have that orange key light. And then we have our backlight that's, again, separating the background from the foreground or the background from the subject, giving it an environment feel. We're going to turn it down a little bit just because it's kind of hot. But again, just like this, that's how you want to set up your 3-point light setup for your scene. It's a good lighting for any scene. Now here's a pro tip. When you have everything set up how we do, we have the camera set up, we have the point of interest set up, we have the light set up. You can go to File, Defaults, Save Startup File. And if you do this, every time you open Blender, your file will start just like this. So your lights will be set up, your scene will be set up, your point of interest will be set up, everything will be set up, and you can get started right away with just creating content or creating a 3D scene. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to learn more, go to digitalrealm.com and become a member today. With your membership, you get access to our course library. We have all different types of digital media content creation topics that you can cover and learn for yourself. Very beginner friendly, just like this video. So with that being said, go to digitalrealm.com and get your membership today. And don't forget, join our Discord community at the link below. You can get access to a lot of topics and discussions about these videos just like this from members of the Creator Camp. So with that being said, hopefully I'll see you in the Discord community in the link below. Let's go.